Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Buy Round Interview Show. Today I am joined by a man that has come on a magnificent journey all the way from the north of England to ply his trade here in the NRL, England international Herbie Farnworth. Herbie, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Jimmy. First podcast, so a little bit nervous, but it's not live, so it shouldn't be too bad.
We'll be all right, mate. We'll go easy on you. I said about you coming from England, but you come from a non-traditional rugby league area like myself. How did you find yourself involved in the game?
Yeah, so I came from Burnley and I went to school in Skipton. So I played soccer growing up and then transitioned into rugby union once I went to high school. I always remember saying I didn't want to play until it was contact. You know, it's always touch footy until the first grade of high school. So did that and then went to Wigan St Patrick's in year 7, or end of year 7.
That's for those Aussie listeners. That's it'd be a equivalent of what I would call like Gammy Gorillas or a Burley Bears, right? It's just like a local amateur team. Like,
yeah. So
I suppose Burley Bears are in the club, but it's just it's a community club, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
community club.
So we went down there, and I was at a grammar school in Skipton, and then going down to Wigan St Patrick's was a massive culture switch up. So absolutely loved it down there. Made some great mates. Some of them were gone on to play Super League. Josh Shorrocks, Ethan Havard was in my team, and then went to Newton Storm and England schoolboys, and then sort of made my journey out to Australia from there.
Yeah, we'll come back to that journey to coming out here. I want to ask you, anytime your name gets mentioned, and it's quite commonplace with a lot of English-based rugby league players, it's always, they could have made it as a soccer player, or he had. Basically, if you had a Man United shirt, you had trials for Man United.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, Matty Smith, I'm not sure if you know him, played at St Helens. It's like he had like a trial for Everton, and when he made it at Saints, it was like, we got this protege from soccer that's come and played league. Like, are you actually any good, or is that just a complete fabrication of the truth?
No, I'm really good. Nah, I was all right, but I never really took soccer seriously.
Did you have trials for Man United or anything?
When I was younger, yeah, I actually
what
did.
Right.
But listen, you know what it's like over there. I was about, how old would I have been? 9 or 10. So that doesn't really count. But like they cast the net so wide. If you're half a good athlete, they'll invite you down. And I was at Burnley for a little bit. I'd train there 2 or 3 times a week. But like I was maybe 9, and it wasn't ever serious, and it was just like I was never a prodigy. I was just a good athlete for my age. That was about it.
What was the extent of the United training? Because they love to roll with that. Like
once or twice, that was it. Nothing.
Yeah,
never. Like it was just. But you're from England, you know what it's like. They just if you got a kid that's like big or fast, they'll just bring you down.
Yeah.
So
it's actually getting crazy over there. The competition for anybody with athletic ability, that's what they're scouting for, rather than footballing or soccer ability.
100%.
It's, if you've got athletic tendencies, we're going to bring you in, and from a very young age. Like, it's insane, which is actually, it's difficult for the sport of rugby league to compete against that. You've got to have a real love for the game of rugby league to get into that pathway system, because, like you say, the soccer or the English Premier League clubs are just coming for you no matter what.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it, in England? So, such a shame, obviously losing a lot of players to probably soccer and then to even union as well. So, it's always going to be hard for the English league team to kind of step up and hopefully win something, which we hopefully will do. I think the next one's in 2 years, is it?
2 years, yeah.
So that's the challenge that we're facing, but hopefully we can do something.
Mate, I'm very confident in what you guys are building. We went so close in 17, and I just know the impact that what you guys can do for the country would be huge. Just on that, you say coming up in Burnley, for the Aussie listeners, that would be like the equivalent of growing up in, not even Melbourne, be like Western Australia, like so far from rugby league. It's not part of the culture there. So what was it about? Like, how did you find the sport?
Well,
because you're saying you went to Skipton and then to St Pat's, but I know for anyone in England listening, be like, well, where did rugby league enter the life of Herbie Farnworth?
Well, so my uncle Brian, he sort of brought me into the like league life or whatever you want to call it. So it was, I played tag rugby first, and I absolutely loved that, which is like with the ones with the tags on the side, that Oz tag over here, and then I went to Skipton Grammar and played Union, and loved playing Union. And then Brian, I was going pretty good at Union, and he said, "Oh, if you think you're a good player, you should come down and play league in Wigan." So I was like, as a kid, I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that then." And then went down to St. Pat's from there. So
he's had a big impact on your life, Brian, hasn't he? I don't know if the correct term is coach me, but he had a lot to do with me, or a bit to do with me as a kid in the England academy system. And he was a fascinating person, very disciplined human being, taught us a lot as young boys, trying to become young men in terms of didn't like swearing, where a lot of people in and around the sports junior, I guess, culture scene would be happy to swear in front of young impressionable boys at 13 and 14. Brian was strict, like no swearing. Was big on repetition and just the little things that help build a young man. But you had obviously a closer relationship, and I've spoke to Brian and some of the programs that he wanted to implement with you have obviously paid off. Yeah,
he's definitely different. Is Brian? He doesn't swear, doesn't drink, nothing like that. So as a young boy, you're right. He's definitely someone that you want to have around you. Maybe not at the time, you don't realise it, but growing older, you kind of realise there's some very, very good lessons there for myself as a young kid, and sort of drilled into me to work hard and not only put in the effort, but kind of make it good quality effort too. So all our drills would have good rest and make sure he'd film everything. And if if my technique wasn't right or whatever it was, if I didn't switch hands when I went on the left of somebody, I didn't switch my hands to the ball carrying hand on the left, he'd always go back and say like, "Yo, you can get away with this now playing this age of this standard, but then when you get older, it's not going to help you," and all that sort of things like that. So he was really, really a real stickler for little things like that. So, but yeah, helped me obviously helped me with my footy, and then also helped me outside of footy too.
Just on the football side of things, there was a lot of almost position-specific drills that you were doing from a young age, and it was, am I right in thinking it was based around agility and injury prevention from like the age of about, 13, 14?
Yeah, probably, yeah, even younger, to be honest. All the drills were about like speed and quickness, because obviously probably I'm a bit tall, and I was always tall and skinny, so those sort of things, as a kid growing up and sort of shooting up and going really tall, it's always hard to kind of keep your feet and not get really lanky, and you know what I mean?
You don't want to be a gangly giraffe. Yeah.
So we always work really hard on those type of things, and I still actually work on them to this day, or like pretty much all my off days. Like even after this, I'll go and do some drills, and they only take 10, 20 minutes, just footwork stuff. And
every
off day, yeah.
What you've
pretty
done
much
from a young boy,
yeah,
that's been a mainstay of your life. So you have a day off and you still do these agility based drills.
Yeah. All the boys laugh at me. Because Kevy last year was he'd always used to see me because I'd always train on the Broncos field. Not so much this year. Dolphins a bit further away, so I do it on the North Devils field. But he'd see me with my flags. They go on flags over here, the big poles.
Yeah.
And he'd start in the meeting doing my because whenever I go right, I'll go right hand, and then left, I go left hand like this.
Yeah.
And he starts doing these ones in the meeting, and he's always taking the mick out of me. You know, all the boys are laughing.
Man, I love that about you, that you know what's got results, and everybody's different. The people's processes to get to the desired outcome are unique and different, but what's worked for you, you haven't gone away from that. I absolutely, I really admire that. I think it says a lot that sometimes getting there is the easy part. It's staying there, and those little details of, you've got the the right hand carry, the left hand fend in a specific drill, and then you switch the ball. I know exactly what that's about, and especially playing in the centres, it's so important. That ability to transfer the ball, switch hands, is everything. I think you even scored a try against. Well, Brian sent me the detail of the try against Samoa in a World Cup semi-final. Was basically the drill. Unfortunately, we lost, but it was the drill that you were doing.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, heaps of them are very similar to what I've done growing up. We'd always put stuff in like situations that we could see ourselves getting in. So, yeah, just kind of muscle memory then, probably.
Yeah. You came over here, I think, 14, and from my point of view, I'll tell you how we first met. I was staying at a hotel in Brisbane, and one of the boys just come like, there's a guy in reception for you called Brian. Says he knows you from growing up. Now, this is a slight detour and another story within itself. I went to school with a lad called Brian.
Yep.
And his name was Brian Blackwell. Very tragic story. He actually killed his mum and dad. He went to jail, and he was out, and I'm going, fuck.
He's found you.
It's not that, Brian, is it? And I'm like legitimately in a bit of a panic at this point. I've come down, and I've been like, oh my God, it's Brian Foley. Like, fucking.
Thank God.
Oh my God. yeah. Almost taking a bit of shock, and then introduced me to you. And, you know, you're a 14-year-old kid with stars in your eyes that, as you know, Brian, he's got this goal to play in the NRL, and I'm like, you get asked a lot about like, what's your advice to give young kids, and it's, I'm sure you'd experience this. It's quite, you know that these people are going to almost hang off you every word.
Yeah,
and you'll be kind of quite careful to these individuals and say, like, do you sell them the dream, or do you give them the throwaway line of just enjoy it, or like how serious? Like, you know, everyone wants to make it as a professional athlete, so you kind of like, oh, let's get a picture, like all the very best. You kind of don't really know what to say, and then it's phenomenal that fast forward, there you are playing in a grand final for the Brisbane Broncos. But I want to take you back to that time coming here, because you left home from such a young age, and when I say home, it's not just going to another part of the country, but you left as a 14-year-old. Was it at that stage you decided to make a decision? I'm gonna get into the Australian system and their pathways.
So when I was 14, me and Brian would come out to Australia for our summer break, so about 6 weeks stint, and I'd play for Burnley Bears, and it kind of would line up for the finals. So the first year I came out, I played 1 or 2 games, and I hurt my back, like injured my back. So that was a really hard one, because I remember coming out all this way and coming to play and sort of test myself. And I remember even the first 2 games, the jump up in standard was crazy. So thinking, oh, these lads are on the next level, and I've played 2 games, come all the way to Australia, and I hurt my back, and then I couldn't play anymore. Yeah. So I was like, I was shattered really. But then we came back the next year, and I think I played for England schoolboys just before in the Easter against France. And so I had a little bit of interest then from the Broncos, and I think it was Roosters at the time too as well. So we came down then, and I visited the Roosters and the Broncos. I actually wanted to sign for the Titans, believe it or not, because we'd stay on the Gold Coast, and I loved it there.
Yeah,
I went to see them, and they just weren't even interested in me whatsoever. They told me to come down and trial for Tweed for the under-18s team, and I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. But yeah, we did that, and so this is skipping on a year, and this was under-17s actually, and I ended up signing with the Broncos on a 2-year deal for the under 20s side, the NYC, and we played same again. I was trialing at Burnley. They would come down to watch me, and I was training 1 day a week at the Bronx. and then flew back, signed for the Bronx, flew back home, and they let me have off until after Christmas. So I had like September till Christmas at home, and then I moved out. And I remember all my mates took me out for a meal, and it was like the last night before I was flying the next morning, and all my mates took me out for a meal, and they were going to drop me home. I remember walking. I was like, "No, I'll walk." And it's like, "You sure?" Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah." And as soon as I turned around, I was like crying. I was crying because I was thinking my life's going to change from all my mates to I have no one out there. And I kind of didn't show anyone that I was like, obviously, like I was 17 when I just turned 17. So obviously had doubts and did not, you know what I mean? And there's no certainties, but especially from England, you try and put on this strong front that you don't know doubt, and you'd be sweet and all this sort of stuff. So went home, sat on like a bus bench and kind of got myself together before going inside to see my family, and then saw them, slept, went on the plane the next day. And I remember that first 6 months. I remember rocking up to Broncos 20s training the first time, and it was Payne Haas, Paddy Carrigan, and a lad called Cameron Torpey. They came outside with their shirts off and that, and Australians are big on the weights early on here.
Yeah.
So they were all like men, and I was like thinking, I've been playing under 16s in England, jumping up to under 20s over here. And I was thinking, holy, what am I going to do here? Mate, honestly, it's the biggest culture shock. But yeah, it took that first 6 months, just like full-time pre-season, like going home and just doing nothing, just being so shattered. And I just kind of stuck in it, and honestly wanted to go home every day, was thinking about calling it quits, but just didn't really want to let any of my family down. They've obviously sacrificed a lot to get me where I am. I just felt if I don't give this my best shot, then I'm letting people down around me more than myself. So yeah, it was that first year was definitely killer.
Mate, I can only imagine, mate. You say there about leaving your mates. Like I struggled to get my head around leaving at the age of 25, I think it was, when I came over. And it was a big deal for me, and going into the unknown and testing yourself. But for a young boy to do it, to be away from that support, like, and not just away, but so far away and so far removed. And
that's it.
And also you'd be the real odd one out in terms of you've not had the same level of development, like you say, with the weights, but also you'd stand out like dog's balls because you're English.
Do you know what used to get me all the time? They would call something, and you know how all the names are different over here? Like, I don't know, growing up, we'd always call them like leads and links.
Yeah, yeah.
And over here it's like blocks and stuff, and they have like, obviously growing up they all have the same names for everything. And the Aussie accent too, I could not understand what they were saying half the time, so I'd always rung the wrong shape. And you know, like with like a big dangly white kid coming in running the wrong shape, and they were just like, who is this? Who is this?
Yeah, well, I can picture it. Yeah. Like because I always say this, like, I heard a comedian talk about like Australians and English and Americans, and it's like meeting like a sibling you didn't know you had. Like, there's a familiarity there, and you're like, Australia was similar, but it's a little bit different. Like, there's something different about you. Like, I recognise you're Australia, but I kind of don't know what you're about just yet. But for you to come over at that age, like, even the accent and different meanings for different things, quite a simple thing now. Run me a lead, run me a block. If you're not familiar with that terminology, like, you're even further out your comfort zone.
Literally. Honestly, it was the hardest. I was terrible that first year. I just kind of trained really hard. I was good at the fitness stuff, but that was about it.
Did they make you feel welcome, the Aussie lads, or was there a little bit of like, who's it? Because it's very competitive as well. Under 20s is like you're all in competition with one another to make it, and almost I can imagine what it would be like as an English lad coming over, like, who does he think he is, kind of thing.
Yeah, they did, and they did, but it probably took them about 6 months to kind of get used to my humour. You know, like English always making fun of each other and stuff, but and like being real dry. They probably thought I was being serious all the time. I think they generally thought I was being serious from the jokes I was making, but yeah, got some great mates from that team now, and a lot of them have gone on to play first grade as well in Origin and all sorts. And we had a really talented group there, like Paddy, Payne, Katoni, Kobe Everington, Trey Fuller was in that group from Dolphins. There was heaps. We had a really strong team. Stagsy, Tony Staggs. They could go on heaps.
That is
Jen Sewer.
That is a stacked team for you to. Do you think that helped bring your game along as well? Like if you compare yourself to where you would have been in the English system versus coming out here and being in what sounds like the best, most talent-stacked under-20 team in Australia.
It was a very, very talented team. We didn't actually do that well in the NYC though.
Really?
We didn't do well now. We think we got knocked out first round of finals. But like looking at the players that have kicked on, like I just thought that was the standard of player. You know what I mean? And that's so sort of being like with that group versus being with a group over in Super League where probably I would be similar age to them as well. I was always a lot younger too, so with the way that the birthdays work over here, I'm in the last week of the birthdays over here too, so it feels like I'm going for an extra year.
Yeah.
And like now it doesn't matter, but when you're under like a 17-year-old against like a 20-year-old, it makes a big difference. I feel like so.
Well, there's studies that show like where your birthday is in the sports calendar year make a huge difference. Yeah. So I think in England, obviously
August is the youngest.
August is the youngest in the school year, and it's the same with the sports calendar year. So if you've got an advantage if you're born in September, October, or November.
Yeah. Because
you get so much more development and.
Makes sense.
What was the book? There's a book. Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. And there's another one on building the perfect athlete, and it's how they look at talent identification should be about potential, not about who's performing the best now. Because for like an 8-year-old, there's almost, even up to 10 years old. So when you're looking at that age, it's like there's some kids that have had 10% more life than some others in that field of play. So
it's interesting you say that, because that's one thing Brian would always stress at, and it kind of like looking back on it now, it's pretty. I always had the mindset of, and I still have it now to be fair, is whenever someone would beat me at something, I would always just in my head just to put it down to like I'm gonna get him eventually. Kind of I've not like honed my skill enough or become the best athlete I could be yet, but I just wait and I'm gonna get him. Or I'd always think that they've just kind of like I don't know, start the weight program before me or whatever it was. I would never thought, oh, he's better than me ever. And like that's probably down to him, not because I was being arrogant or anything like that. Probably just because he's the way he would talk to me about it. He'd always just be like, just you wait until we finish doing this, or you've like done this for a long enough period of time, and it'll be nothing to you, and you'll cruise past him or whatever. He'd always word stuff like that, and like looking back on it now, I never really doubted myself with all that. Even when I first came to Australia, I definitely was nowhere near the best. I was probably one of the worst. But I never thought I was going to stay that way. I always just assumed I was going to, if I stuck with everything I was doing, was just going to just become one of the best, which is a pretty crazy mindset to have put on you by somebody else, really. But I guess I was a bit of a stroke of genius from Brian there, really. Like looking back on it now, I never really thought of it that way, but I can see how if I didn't have him, I would just assume that I wasn't good enough and things like that.
You live in the moment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You live in the immediate, like, I've lost this beep test.
Yeah.
I'm not fit.
Yeah.
Or I've lost this, left edge v right edge. Well, I'm just.
He's better than me.
He's better than me. I'm done. But no, like if you actually apply yourself, you learn to get better, and especially for like young athletes, so many do get caught up in the moment of either I've lost or he's better, or possibly what's probably worse is when those people that win at such a young age and think I've landed. I'm the winner. It's like, well, no, like the competition's only just begun. Like it's fascinating. Like athlete development and like realizing your potential is something that really interests me. And your story and your mindset is so important. And even coming out your comfort zone like that must have been such a whirlwind, like you said. Some of the little details I speak about Australian English, American, whatever, were similar but were different. Did you have to almost change how you spoke as well, like your accent, to have your teammates understand you?
It was more the slang. Like I was saying before on the practicing on this, it was all the slang words I'd always use, and especially being from Burnley, like you pretty much talk in slang. Yeah. So I was thinking, I'd say a sentence and everyone would be like, "What are you talking about?" So then I'd have to cut out words and try and use words that they use, and now it's kind of natural. So I go back to England and all my mates roast me for having like half an Aussie twang, and then come over here and we're saying that once you're back with your English mates, it kind of comes back a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one thing that definitely that first year took a lot of practice.
It's funny that like there's certain things that I won't say that are Aussie slang, like. I won't put "but" on the end of a sentence.
Oh, man, I used to be bad for that.
Did you?
I used to be really bad for that.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've noticed that you're like, oh, I can't fall into that trap of being an Aussie?
Oh, that was probably the one. Or like, hey, saying hey a lot and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I won't. Yeah, especially like I've got a few English mates out here now. So if I go a bit too Aussie on them, they'll sort of pull me back in line.
I got caught up into the habit of just because the people I was knocking around with were big on instead. So if I meet you, I'd say, "All right, lad," or "All right, mate."
All right, mate. Yeah. I never say that anymore.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
And that was just a thing. Like I stopped saying that completely.
Yeah, it's something you have to get out your vocabulary. But some of the Aussies I was knocking around with, "Hey, brah."
Yeah, I'm bad for that.
And I started saying it, and then it was like I caught myself, and I was like, "Shit, I need to fucking get that out of my vocabulary. Don't use it in text, WhatsApp. Never use it anymore." Because I was like, I sound like a fucking Aussie. Like it's
bad too. Like,
it makes my skin crawl. Like,
but being from England, I remember, I think Sammy Burgess did like a podcast or an interview once, and I was living in England at this time, and I was a young kid. And I remember listening to him. I was like, "Why does he sound Aussie? What is he doing?" And it was kind of the time he was on about playing Origin. So I was like, "Is he putting this on?" And I remember as a kid, you couldn't really understand it, but now I understand it. Yeah, like, you're hanging around Aussies all day.
Yeah, they influence you, and like it's sort of that language is quite contagious, I find.
Yeah.
But it's just an interest, especially for being such a young kid that would be very impressionable, and you'd be like, I want to fit in. You could. Oh yeah. You'd be like, oh, I'm going to change out.
100%.
Yeah. You used a phrase there as well before that is very English. I think you said, I can't remember what you said, but you said, "To be fair," and that's very English. I'm like, fucking yes, we still got him. That's one of my. To be fair, and Aussies are like, what do you mean? To be fair about what? It's like, it's just a saying. And it's one of those small details, but it fucking cracks me up when I'm like, fuck you with your butt at the end of every sentence. It drives me insane. Mate, coming through the Brisbane Broncos, you start to make an impact. And then at the time, it was Seabold that gave you your debut. Am I right in thinking that?
Yep, so Seabs gave me my debut on the wing against Sharkies. And we had that baby Broncos team. It was me, Xavier Coates, Keenan Palisea. We all debuted, and I think Reece Kennedy, who's at Hull now, I think, he had his club debut. But we had a super young team there. I was on the wing, but yeah. So that was. I think I played 2 games that year. We beat the Sharkies, and then I played the Warriors the week after, and we drew in Golden Point. We went to Golden Point and we drew. Yeah. And I was actually the one that got stripped to let, like, we were winning, and then I got stripped, like, coming out the yardage by little Neff at the Dolphins now, and he always brings it up. Little Cody, he stripped me. It's just stupid for me. They kick a field goal to level it.
How did it feel to be on the NRL stage? Again, mindset's been an important part of your development. Was the mindset, I've made it, or I've got a taste for it, or I want more of this? Can you explain to us a little bit about that?
It's probably a bit. It was like a justification for everything that you've done before, all the training you've put in and all the extras you've done and all the parties you've said no to. It's like this is the reason why you've done it. So it was pretty cool. I remember getting pretty teary up there, getting my jersey, which looking back on now makes me cringe so bad. But
That's it, mate.
yeah, but I was only a young kid, so I let myself off. Won't be too hard on myself, but yeah, it was definitely a special moment, and I remember that game and just thinking how fast it was and just unbelievable. Like I was on the wing too, but I was trying to run around, get involved, and do all sorts. But it was just a cool experience, especially to get the win as well. Yeah, it was just special day.
But do you think again it was harder because you were English? Do you think there was more emphasis put on you versus those other lads that were maybe making their debut? The lad that could have played for Man United is now playing for the Brisbane Broncos.
See, I actually didn't find it that, but I actually probably felt like I wasn't one of them that had a lot of spotlight on them coming through this system in Australia. Especially Xavier scored a pretty special try that day, so that kind of took a lot of pressure off everyone that was making their debut as well. Kind of it was a big aerial ball, which he's obviously known for now. He's very famous for those ones. So, and he's one of my best mates too. So that was kind of nice debuting with him as well. So yeah, just absolutely loved it and getting on the field. And as a kid watching, I watch NRL all the time. So to finally play it was so cool. Yeah.
Messages of support from back home, or did anyone come out to watch the debut?
Brian was already living at ASA. He was watching the debut. He gave me my jersey, so that was cool.
That would have been amazing, man.
Yeah, all my family's still back home. It's such a long flight. It's for like a week or so. It's so hard to get out. Expensive too. So, but everyone watched back home and got like a little crew back home. Even my little home village, like they always put the footy on, and I got like a little fan base that everyone goes down and watches. So it's really nice to send photos from that. But yeah, like got a really good family back home watching me and supporting me.
It's class that you can make such a difference to be so many people riding every play that you're involved in. Like that's quality. You start to make a name for yourself at the Broncos and play a couple of seasons there, and then I guess surprisingly maybe for some people you chose to sign with the Dolphins. What was it about either the attraction to the Dolphins, or like why leave Brisbane? Because it is such a powerhouse, and you've come through this system. You know, you could make a case why you'd really want to stay involved in such a high flying team.
Yeah, it was definitely a hard one, but at the time I probably wanted to stay, to be honest. But I didn't really feel like there was a good pathway for me there. I felt like I was not going stale, but I was kind of going to be the same kind of usage of centre that I was always going to be, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And I wanted to kick on my game and try and push myself forward. And it was before last season, so I signed before the season started last year, which was obviously was probably my best year I've had so far, and made it to the Grand Final as well. So that probably would have changed a few things on their part as well. So, but Dolphins came along, and I could see that they really wanted me and saw a lot in me too. So, you know, as a player, like money's one thing, but then it's you just want to be wanted. You know what I mean? And you want to be valued. So like I felt like I was being valued and wanted a lot more from Dolphins. And I also saw they had a very, very good young team coming through. There's young Izzy there at 7 and Jackie Bostock on the wing. There's a lot of good young players coming through. So I just think by the end of it, it sort of all made sense, and it all made sense in my head to sign, even though my heart at the time was with the Broncos and loved the club, been there since I was 15. I felt like I had to make the hard call and sign for the Dolphins, but ever since signing there, it's been class. So obviously being coached by Wayne and Wolfie as well. So obviously Wolfie's done heaps in the Super League, and he'll be the head coach next year, so I'm keen to work under him as well. So, it just all made sense to me at the end. And then I always made a point of not letting my form dip. I always said to Kevy, I'm never, just because I sign, I'm not gonna let my form dip for you or anything. I'm gonna come out and sort of try and have the best year that I can for you, and I like to think that I did that. So, we're on good terms, me and Kevin, all the coaching staff and all the players at the Bronx, like still love them, catch up with them, coffees and all sorts. So there's no there's no there's no hard feelings there at all with the Broncos.
It was a remarkable season for you, considering you'd signed you'd signed to leave the club. But the Brisbane Broncos last year, season 2023, just caught this wave. And can you just tell us from like a player's perspective? I know how dedicated you are, but with that wave of support and attention can be a distraction. Like, how did you navigate that as a young player and as an individual and as a team? Yes, it's great that we've got the fan access and everybody's in love, but it can make you lose focus sometimes. So how did you manage that?
Yeah, you're right. We probably didn't manage it the best that we could do. Even that last week to the grand final was a bit of a circus, which obviously my first time being in the finals, in any finals, never mind the grand final. I kind of thought it was normal, but I really wish that we locked in a little bit more in that last week. I know that all the work's done by then, and it wouldn't have made a difference, but a little bit too much emphasis on the media and the press and things like that I'm sure was from the uppers in the club, because it's obviously such a big moment for them. So we probably let a few things go that we shouldn't have done. But yeah, especially having such stars in your team, like you got big, like kind of fashionistas like Ezra Mammon, Reece Walsh, and players like that, which worked for us too, because obviously it kind of added to the team. But probably the last week, I wish we just really dialed it in on that last week. But I've also learned a lot from it too. I was probably the same, like trying to chase around, get tickets for people, like fly people out, get hotels and stuff like that. And there's always somebody who's not like satisfied with like what they've got, and you kind of, instead of just thinking like I'll give you this and you got to sort yourself out, and I'm focusing on this game. So there was a couple errors made on our part, which obviously is going to happen being such a young team, but saying that if we manage to hold on to that win, no one's talking about them. So it's kind of when you're winning, things can go unnoticed and untouched. When you're losing, you sort of look for all the details where you could have changed things, but that is one that I think we probably could have been a bit better on. Yeah,
the benefit of hindsight after a result, and like you say, it's one tackle, it's one set of six, especially considering everything that happened in that 80 minutes, which, as a fan was like a brilliant advertisement for the game. As a commentator, it was amazing. But I felt for the Brisbane lads. I've lost more grand finals than I care to admit, and I know how shattering it can be. One in particular sticks out that we had and we lost, and it still irks me to this day, and that'll never die. Like, it never will, and I'm okay with it, but it's still, every now and then it'll just be like, boom, clicking it, get out my head. And you know what? It's almost, because sport's so important to us and rugby's so important to us, it's almost like you need professional help to get over it. Can I ask about what it was like to feel like you've got this thing you've been aiming for, you're leaving the club, and it was snatched away out of your grasp?
Like I said before, growing up in England, sort of the like mental side of stuff, you always shown to hide it all and not show any emotion. But honestly, that loss was probably the hardest thing I ever had to go through in my life. Just the amount of, as you'd know, the amount of hours you put in growing up as a kid, and it felt like everything was leading up to this one moment, and it was just going to be like a fairy tale, and like it was all worth it, and it looked like it was going that way. Came back from being down to winning the game. It felt like we were home, and then all of a sudden the game started to turn. We couldn't get the footy back. It was a really hot day too. We're grinding, and you just think, oh, we're going to hold on, and when you don't, and the final whistle goes, it's like a film. You can't believe it's happened, and you want to do anything to go back and change it, but it's all snatched out of you. It's horrible. It was a horrible feeling. Probably took me a good 6 months, I reckon, to kind of come back to normal. Like I just felt numb for the next couple of weeks. Had the worst off season. Didn't really enjoy much of my off season. Was put on a bit of a brave face. Like anytime I was on my own, I was just thinking about the grand final, thinking about what I could have done differently. But yeah, it was just horrible. And I still think about it now all the time.
Yeah.
I've watched it back that many times. Everyone says don't watch it back, but I was like, I have to watch it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just hoping, like I'm only young and I get there again, and I can put it right, because it would kill me if I can't get back there again. But yeah, it's like it's your dream as a kid to go up and win it. So when it doesn't happen, it just doesn't feel fair, and there's nothing you can do about it, which is the hard thing to kind of deal with.
It's almost like it's a grieving process. Like that's how I describe it. Sometimes it's like a grieving process, and you know, sport's great because it does give you new opportunities and something else to focus on. So, you know, like I said, I've lost many a grand final, and then next it was England, or then next it was back to the St. Helens, or back to the Bulldogs, or back to the Dragons. There was always something next, which was great, but there was always that little bit of grieving process. I felt it in 2017 with the World Cup final, like so many times. Not for me, probably there was elements of looking back and going, what we could have done, what I could have done, but more dealing with my what ifs. Like, what if we'd have won?
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
Fuck.
It'd be so different.
Yeah. Or would it?
Well,
or would it be different? And would it be necessarily different for the better?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I talked to Feeney, who won it with Dragons, our coach at the Dolphins, and he was kind of saying that after he won it, so they obviously won it, and he said that he struggled after a while after that, and just kind of thought, I felt a bit empty and stuff, and thought, what next? So I think as well, you put all this emphasis on something, and when it does happen, you almost, I don't know what the feeling's like, but I don't think it's always so like what you think it's gonna be like.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy to say, oh, if I won it, all my problems would be gone and I'll be flying and laughing or whatever. But I don't think it is the case a lot of times too.
Like especially at 24, like which you like, you're a very young man still. It's hard to know. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
But it fascinates me. Could be like I say, because I've been in those shoes and how different people process it, and even like you're grieving, but then others around you are grieving as well. Like in the changing room, I can remember Tommy Makinson one time. Like I was more there for him. Like I was shattered for him, and you can almost keep it in for someone else. Like keep it bottled up. Like how was it in the sheds after the game? Like
horrible. Like that. I don't think anyone spoke for about 30 minutes. We all just sat there. I don't know. It was like you said. It was such a whirlwind, and just to kind of end like that was really shattering for the boys, especially for myself and Fleggy, Capes. It was all our last year there, Keenan, and just thought to leave the club, especially for me, Fleggy and Keenan, that we come up through and played all our games at, to leave it on a win at the grand final would have just been, you know what I mean? Like you're just not assuming, but you just kind of positive mindset, and it's gonna happen, and then bang, doesn't. So it's like where to next? But do you know what I remember doing? I remember the week after the grand final, I obviously not gonna train. I trained a like con session on the old Broncos field and killed myself like at a conditioning session. I still don't know why I did it to this day. I'm never gonna like. You always have a couple of weeks off, and I just remember killing myself on this conditioning session. Just think, I don't know why. I still don't know why I did it. I kind of get something back, or
I get it
to prove something.
I get it. Prove something. Yeah. I'm gonna take my anger out.
Nobody was there. Yeah, just me.
Yeah.
So
I reckon if you spoke to a lot of your Broncos teammates, they would say the same.
Yeah.
That they would have done something to like hurt them. So, like I'm gonna do something here to sort of try and fight back against the noise as well, because the noise is there all the time in your brain, in your mind, just like those what ifs. Well, I'm going to shut this voice up for a minute and give it
Yeah.
Fuck you. I'm going to flog myself. This is what if. We're not going to feel this again, because kind of taking that personal responsibility of, oh, fucking...
Yeah.
Yeah. And it silences the noise for a little bit when you flog yourself. One of the great things about exercise and mental health is it stops you worrying about the problems, and you can just worry about actually getting the conditioning finished. It's fascinating what exercise does to the mental state. But mate, I just felt for you guys. Even being in the commentary box, it felt like you were in a movie watching it. I can't imagine what it was like on the ground.
Yeah, no, it was horrible. But hopefully we can bounce back with the Dolphins. We're still in finals. I think we're sitting 5th or 6th at the moment. So,
what the Dolphins have built has been amazing, really. Like under Wayne in their first year, and a lot of people expecting second-year syndrome. This year have been again smashed with injuries to some of your best players, and you're still there or thereabouts. So they are on the trajectory for success. One of those guys who'll be, obviously there's a lot to play for this year. You mentioned Wolfie coming in next year. So we've got Wolfie on tomorrow, a former coach of mine who I can't speak highly enough of.
Good fella.
How excited are you for him taking over in 4 or 5 months' time?
Yeah, very excited. He's got a very, very tough coaching style as Wolfie, which I'm sure you know. But he's definitely rubbed off on the team. Like, obviously played for some teams now in the sense England, Broncos, and then Dolphins. The 3 teams I've played for at a high level, and this Dolphins team, just the effort areas and the way they go around the tough side of the game is just, I've not seen it before from a team that I've played with. Just love the tough stuff, honestly. Like they pride themselves on the kick chase and the working from markers and the line speed, which is super cool to be a part of, and that's definitely driven from Wayne and also Wolfie, especially Wolfie, to be honest. He loves that stuff, and anytime anyone does a good kick chase or a good line speed or whatever they're doing, he's always putting up on video and giving them big raps. So I think that's one of the things that's been a big driver of our wins this year, is all that effort areas.
He certainly does, and he knows better than anyone that they win your grand finals, and I'm looking forward to speaking to him about that, because I don't know if you remember the 2020 grand final in the Super League and hits the post and the Saints are chasing. Wellesby chases, Well, he's not the only one. Yeah. And also, if you go back and look at Lachlan Coote takes a conversion and Saints players chase just in case it hits the post. Yeah. They don't react to in case it hit. The kick goes over. It's just one of those habits that you get into. Like being ready to take opportunity through effort and doing little things is something Wolfie's all about. So I think he can take you to that promised land. He's done it at St. Helens, I think 3 times, Challenge Cup there as well. I'm really excited about what he can do for, because I want to see him succeed, because obviously got a personal relationship with him, and everything that he's about, I think, should get results. Yeah. So excited to see at the Broncos. At the Dolphins rather. Mate, you touched on England. Do you feel the pressure to win something?
Definitely. That even that semi-final we lost in the World Cup, that still hurts me now. Not as much as the grand final, because that's probably a bit more recent. But that semi, we had that one, and obviously going on to play the Aussies in the final. In a final, anything can happen. Yeah. So they've obviously got a great team, but we just really didn't, that second half, and we just let ourselves down a little bit. But I think looking at who's come over to Australia and who's played well, I think we will have a very strong side at the end of this year, and also I think we've got the Tri-Nations next year.
I think it's Ashes next. I think it's World Cup, then Ashes or Ashes.
We've got the Samoa test this year, eh?
Yeah, 2 tests against Samoa.
Yeah, and then next year
World Cup.
World Cup, is it next year?
Pretty sure. What year is it?
Yeah, they pushed it back.
Ashes.
Yeah, because they was, but they pushed it back.
Oh, it's Ashes next year.
Yeah.
Ah. All right, fair enough.
But
Well,
yeah.
Ashes. Well, mate, the Ashes would be.
Massive, yeah.
If we could win that, like.
We just which we definitely could do, and I think winning a World Cup or winning something for England would be so massive because it's just not been done for so long. I remember growing up and watching those tests you boys had against the Kiwis, and I remember thinking like that was such a good feeling watching you boys beat all those stars that they had. So doing something similar to that for young kids back at home in England and showing that like we can mix it with the best players in the world, it'd just be so cool, I reckon. So, but yeah, as I said before, we got some very, very strong players there coming through. Like Kai for Knights has had a really good year. Morgan Smithies, yeah, we got some good young players coming over here and doing well. And I'm sure, obviously, we got some class players back home too, which is good because none of the boys over here really know them either and kind of look down on them a little bit. So I love it when we show up and turn teams over.
Mate, when Mikey Lewis scored that try against Tonga last year, I was blown away. Like I didn't know much about him, and you could tell like it's one of those playing against people you don't know.
Yeah.
And he scored, and then he was so emotional after the game. I was like.
It's hectic, eh?
Keeping it in myself, I was like, "Fucking how good's this?" And he's talking about being this young lad from Hull, and like, there's so many players like that I would just love to give like the respect and the stage to over here. It'd be massive for the English game. Spoke a little bit about mindset and everything that goes into being an athlete now, and I asked about the fanfare and the hype and the off-field stuff that comes with the Broncos, but yourself, who is a very marketable young man, how do you deal with that life away from the field? Because you're
sort of like
not a bad sort, is what I'm trying to say. And mate, the way you rock around in the sheds before a game, we can see that on our monitors. It's absolute rigatoni. Like, Jesus Christ! Everyone stops and looks at you and follows you around. So, no doubt, there's plenty of distractions out there.
I don't know. I don't really feel like there is for me. Obviously, got a girlfriend that I've been with for a while now, so that sort of stuff I'm not really interested in at all. So, and dealing with the fans, like I absolutely love it. It's pretty cool. I just think it's so nice. That's like, for example, for when I was in the fans' shoes, going to someone like you and having that experience and leaving thinking, fuck, like what a nice bloke, and like can't believe I just spoke to him. Like I just love leaving that sort of feeling on the fan or whatever it is, and it's not every day, and not anyone can say that you can speak to people and kind of make their day just by sort of saying hello, getting a picture, and just being polite to them. I know some people get a bit annoyed by some sort of, if a fan will come up when you're eating dinner or whatever, but I actually don't really mind at all.
Yeah.
Like it's actually nice. Like I love talking to them, and yeah, it's kind of a nice spot to be in, which not everyone can say that they've had that sort of feeling. So yeah, I love it really.
You're still a fan. Yeah. Well, it's important to hold on to that as well, because I think rugby league is a game, mate. You'd know, like. Back home, you would never see Premier League players out and about. You'd never just walk in a random cafe in Brisbane like, oh, there's Eric Haaland.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Phil Foden.
Nah.
There's Jude Bellingham just sitting off in the local cafe. I know a lot of them don't drink, but just down the local boozer having a beer with the punters. It's just hey, mate, it just doesn't happen. And I think it's important rugby league holds on to that value, because we're a working class game, working class lads that should be able to relate to the public. So I like hearing that you do that.
Yeah,
it's class.
No, 100%, and that's always, especially going up from England too. I don't think if you go around thinking you're better than people, or not having time for people who sort of brought you up in a way, like you wouldn't last long, would you?
No, you said. What do you like to get up to away from the field? Any sort of other particular interests or business interests that you're pushing at the minute?
Business interests, not at the moment. I've just bought a house in Hendra, so that's my first house. That was pretty cool, being able to get that over here. So, but hobby-wise, bocce on the beach on the Goldie.
What's that?
You ever play bocce?
No.
You know, like bulls, like bulls, but
yeah.
on the sand.
Yeah.
I go down.
Like what they do in France.
Yeah. French bulls, yeah.
Yeah. French bulls.
Calls them bocce over here. So I go down to the Gold Coast and cruise around in my budgies playing bocce on the beach for hours.
Really?
That's my hobby. I love it.
That's brilliant. I like it. I don't mind a bit of bulls, but it's been
honestly
a long time.
It's such a good game. The best game. I love it.
The only problem with me and the beach, mate, is I get sunburnt very easily.
It's like flaggy's
so it's maybe it's not as fun for people like me, like when you've got that to contend with. Mate, we've got 4 questions for each and every guest that we do for each show. So the first one, the dream spine, no particular rules, so just a 1, 6, 7 and 9.
I think 1, I got Darius Boyd. Had a lot to do with him at the Broncos, taught me so much to do with footy and also stuff like he's just a really good player. I remember one time he gave me his boots when I had no boots, and I just was, after that, I just loved him.
Really?
Yeah, he gave me his Nike, because he was sponsored by Nike, he had the big Nike contract, and he had some, what were they now? They were these, like, bluey Superflies, and mine were falling to bits. I remember seeing him, like, thinking, oh, those are so nice, and he just looked at me, he's like, you can have them if you want.
Oh, man.
And I was, when you're just coming through, I was like, holy, like, this is so cool. But away from that as well, like, one of the best fullbacks, played for Australia, the wing, centre and fullback, which is pretty special in my opinion to do. So he'd be my 1.
Mate, funny you say that about giving you the boots. Like, it's just a simple act of kindness that he probably has forgotten, but you've remembered.
Yeah, definitely remembered that. He gave me 2 pairs actually. Studs and
molds. Mate, that's class. It says a lot about him. Just those little acts of kindness that make such a difference. All right, 6 and 7, 9.
7, I'll go Jackie Edwards. So he, obviously Sean's, who was his son and played for Wigan, played in that great Wigan side. Jackie played in the 50s for Warrington Wolves. Bit of a different one. He, as well, when I was growing up, he was a great player, one of Warrington's greatest players. And he unfortunately had a bad spinal injury when he was 24. But I was reading up on him. 24, he had a spinal injury and he played 223 games before he was 24. How mad is that?
And that was Sean Edwards'
dad.
Dad?
Yeah, so I would always go to his house after every game. He'd come out and watch me play.
Sean Edwards did?
Sean Edwards' dad, Jackie.
Oh, really?
And he'd wear his full tweed suit with a flat cap on, and he's only a real small fella. And he would stand under the sticks. So when I was watching him, like at an amateur, like Wigan Set Pat's game, I could just see him under the sticks. But I was really at. And afterwards, he'd always talk to me, like, and he'd tell me, I'd always have my socks down. He'd go, and he would hate having my socks down. He'd go, come here. And I think he'd tell me something about footy, and he'd always go, see them socks? Pull them up, and he'd get a picture of me, and he'd put them down, get a picture of me. He goes, show your mum that and see which is better. Stuff like that. You know, those old English characters. And I just thought. And he was an absolutely great player. Apparently, I never saw him play, obviously, but would love to have him in my spine. And I think he'd be a good character off the field too.
Mate, that's brilliant. The socks up, sock down.
Yeah, I still wear them down.
Do you? Oh, yeah. You got great legs, so mate, pull them up. Yeah. Get them pulled up for Jackie. Give us your 6 and your 9.
9. It's so hard to go past Cam Smith. But, we'll go Cam Smith. I was thinking Mick Ennis. I just thought he'd be fiery to play with and I wouldn't mind having him on my team. Cam's such an easy answer.
Yeah.
But I'll go Mick Ennis.
You'll go Mick Ennis,
I want to just change it up a bit. And obviously, he's a class player too. But yeah, I just laughed when he did the Viking clap. That was so good. Watching that as a kid, loved it. Yeah.
It was, but it's very uncharacteristic as well. He was, I think he was caught in the moment there.
Oh, well done it.
Yeah. Because he's like he was my captain at the Dogs and such a nice guy and but then turn onto the field and he turned into this very different person. But the wind up of the crowd really shocked me. Give us your 6.
I'm actually going to put Jackie at 6 and I'm going to pick a 7. Even though Jackie played 7, I'm going to put him at 6. and my 7, Cooper Cronk.
Cooper Cronk.
Just thought, from what he did to win so many comps at Storm, and then obviously got to Roosters, and then he win back to back at Roosters.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Obviously he's so highly rated, but even though he's so highly rated, I think he just doesn't get enough mentions. Honestly, I felt like he was so clutch too, and just ran all the games. He was so unbelievable watching him play, and I just thought, if I was in a team with him, you just win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think we need someone like that in that team as well, just to steady the ship a bit.
Fair play. Mate, if football or rugby league didn't exist, what do you think you would have done? Obviously, you're very athletic.
Model, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Joking.
Yeah.
I've always said that I would join the army if everything failed.
Really?
But saying that after doing some army camps, I don't think the people running them would agree. But yeah, I reckon I'd be in the army somewhere.
Special forces? You're not just going to be a regular army.
I met that Ant Middleton.
Oh yeah,
he was a good fella. Yeah, he was so something like him. I reckon a bit of a TV army man.
TV army, the fake army.
Nah, but he's actually mad. He's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's bad enough. You never know. It's kind of always been the one thing I wanted to do. So I've never really thought too much about it. But I think army maybe. I think I'd join the army.
Yeah, I reckon you're not just in the regular infantry.
What do you reckon?
You're special forces.
Yeah, thanks.
For sure. Mate,
I'll take that.
Yeah, definitely not infantry. You'd be
front line. Not front line.
No,
I'll be the back telling what to do.
You'd be on special missions. You're not in the trenches.
Service.
You're in secret. They've been pulled from pillar to post at the moment. I reckon you're on special operations.
I'll take it.
Bit of intelligence, not just brute force.
Yep.
Get people out of bad situations. That's what I reckon you would have been.
It.
A sliding doors moment that you think about in your life?
Obviously saying to you about the grand final thing. What if we win that? That's certainly one that I just wonder what my not headspace, but my mindset would be going into this next year. If I still have the same kind of hunger, or if you kind of tick that off the box, what's next? But obviously the easy one is coming from England. If I never came and just stayed over that side of the world. And I remember when I was first coming, I was talking to a couple of rugby union clubs as well, and I just never know. I might have gone there, and I always thought if I stayed in England, I'd play union. So I was talking to Bath and London Wasps at the time. So who knows if I went that route, it'd be a completely different career pathway, and it'd be interesting to see where I was. So
would you ever go back and play over there, like league or union?
Certainly not. It's not on my radar at the moment, but you never say never. Obviously, football's only a short career, so you kind of have to make the most of it.
But there's no like ambition to be like, I want to play in.
I do think it's a pretty small club that have played at a really high level at both codes, and I think that's kind of cool. But like a Sammy Bird just went over, and I know he gets stick for it, but I don't know why, because I thought he did really well over in Union. A bit of a scapegoat for that World Cup, I felt at the time. So, but even remember Sammy Tompkins went over and did the Barbarian game, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
been able to mix it after not playing, and he scored a try too. He played on the wing. So yeah, like I wouldn't rule it out, and it is something that I've definitely thought about, because it's so hard to do, to play the highest level at two different games, really, even though it's still rugby, but completely different rule set. So it's definitely a Benny TL too. Benny TL played for England, but then played Origin over here, so I don't know how that works.
It's a strange one.
I don't know how that works.
He's a fascinating person, Benny TL.
Yeah.
Like with his coaching and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
he's very, very bright.
Yeah,
really good
he's
talker.
Very, like, his football intelligence is insane. Like, nothing against edge back rowers, but he didn't play that way. He played with like so much brute force, or maybe that overshadowed his intelligence on the field. But he's a very football smart person.
Yeah, and he tells great stories too. Because he played his last year at the Bronx with me, so I know him through there.
Oh, right,
and he's Dolphins Q Cup coach now as well, so I have a lot to do with him. But yeah, he's played in so many high quality games all over. Like, he's played Origin, won grand finals, played for English Rugby Union, British Lions. So to play like that many high level games in different codes, like you gotta have a bit of something about you. You know what I mean? Have a bit of knowledge on the game after those games. So, like even myself, I've only played in one grand final. And I learned so much from it, and sort of it's almost a different game. So like having him and sort of picking his brain sometimes around Dolphins is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is, and like he's been around so much high performance culture. Like it's in different scenarios and different budgets as well, which plays a part. Like the English Rugby Union and the British Lions budget for high performance is almost endless. It's like you never be able to get enough resources to, like you'd never be able to purchase enough things to cover the resources and the bases need. But for obviously in league we've got probably a little bit more limitations. But yeah, he'd be an expert in that. He'd be great to have around. The most interesting person that you've met on the journey so far?
Probably the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton. Met her only briefly before the PNG game. She like held up the game. We were supposed to kick off. I can't remember the time we were going to kick off, but she was late and she ended up coming round and shaking all our hands. And there's a video of it. Oh, I've got the video at home. She shakes everyone's hand and she comes to me and talks to me for about 30, 40 seconds. No one else. And I was just like, after the game, everyone was asking me what she was saying, and I was like, can't tell you. It's a secret.
Can you tell us here? Or? No, it's just what goes to the grave.
Goes to the grave. Yeah. But I just remember thinking, like, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Sort of a famous type of person, that would definitely be it. Even though she wouldn't even remember it, but yeah, just that's definitely it for me.
Maybe when she comes on the podcast, she'll say,
"Yeah, I'll bring her on."
It was Herbie Farnworth, most interesting person, Herbie Farnworth, English Rugby League centre. Herbie, mate, it's been fantastic to sit and chat with you, mate. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and a real lesson as well for anyone out there in athlete development about that mindset that you had as a young boy transitioning into a young man, and now as a professional athlete at the top of his game. It's fantastic for our listeners to hear that, and thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Thanks for having me on. Been good to chat.